Hey guys, welcome to Gwent and to GwentUp meta report for this week. And I'm really glad that they put this together. It looks great. You can even click on things and you can check out based on rating. But we're only gonna check it out for 4K plus, and this is awesome. And we see right away that the king of all is unsurprisingly King Bran. And yeah, I knew that. Because he just has it all. He has the carryover, he has the finishing potential, he has the tempo to keep going, and there is not much you can do about it. The deck itself didn't get that stronger. Restore is the only new card that really pushes the deck a little bit. But of course, Armor Radovid or just armor decks coming a little bit down allows King Bran to be the king again. And not like it was a weak deck even before. And second, we have Crach and Craite. So this is basically the Swims list. Like, Swims list is, I suppose, the most played one. And I suppose I'm just gonna check it out. But I suspect that it's an easy to play list. Because if it wasn't easy to play list, then we would see King Bran's win rate lower. Sometimes you see decks like that does well at 4K plus. But at lower rating, players struggle to play it, so the leader win rate is actually lower or much lower. For example, Mail deck tends to be one of those ones. So even if the Mail deck is like Emir is doing like, I don't know, 52 at 4K plus, it's probably doing like I don't know, 30 something at lower lower rating. And Crach and Craite is the second one. And I'm not exactly sure which Crach and Craite list that is, but of course, if King Bran is good, then Crach and Craite is not that far behind. However, he's pretty damn far behind. We can see that. Like, 5.5% V rate? That's insane! Just the leader change. Of course, can be argued that this sample size is not as relevant, but we can see that King Bran is, by far, the leader of everybody, and it's probably like with Swim's list and others lists like that. Like, it was basically the dodgy discard deck from that was conceived from like 2-3 months ago, and that just get carried over instead of relying on like Queen's Guard or something like that to work with Ceres. You just rely on Morgwarg, the Raiders, all geared, just Resurrectors, and with that you can make Ceres come back again. And Ceres is the only only graveyard unit that is basically immune to hate, because the problem with Skellige is that their graveyard archetype is ridiculously easy to shut down. And by that, we see that Vicovaros take out the bronzes, Griffins take out the bronzes, Jade transforms silvers and bronzes, Caretaker takes out bronzes and silvers. So that's about it. And if you try to go for any kind of strategy that just tries to rely too much on that, you're gonna get shut down. Restore is kind of tricky one because yeah, you kind of get it right away. So like Restore is kind of fine, but you're still vulnerable to Caretaker, for example, stealing your Doragarai, and that could hurt. Anyway, Crach and Craite is not too far behind. From what I've seen, it's kind of the same-ish list, but like it looks like a big step down. But the popularity is low, so you're only gonna run into Crach and Craite like 1 in 40 games. Foltest, I'm kind of glad to see Foltest here, and we're gonna a little bit compare the faction to each other, because we see like King Bran, the king of Skellige, Crach and Craite, big step down, kind of try to do the same thing, and Harald the Cripple is way down. The problem with the X-Men decks, because Harald the Cripple is basically the X-Men leader, who is like really something you never see, is that the First Light also got buffed, and for the X-Men, or like, yeah, the single weather counters are stronger, first light is stronger, so you might just run into more of that. Plus, of course, everything else kind of got buffed, and the X-Men got a lot weaker, only gets affected by one row. And Harald the Cripple can get killed as well. Of course, he's not that useless anymore, but yeah, he can get killed. So overall, it just adds up to a and if the weather gets shut down, then those X-Men's really not gonna get that strong. And that's why he's in the dumpster. And I suspect he will remain in the dumpster for a long time, if something doesn't change. But the interesting part is that actually Foltest seem to be leading the Northern Realm. And again, Radovid is someone that very much relies on like shutting down greedy strategies. Because like, yeah, I'm gonna lock 2 things. And against King Bran, you can maybe like lock Olgierd and Morgvarg. But that's about it. And that's not a lot of a lock. Against Dagon, you can, assuming the less greedy version, you can lock some Ekimaras. But even that is like, okay. So like Radovid probably not gonna get as much value as it would get against Eredin. Probably not gonna get any value if you're talking about the popular Eredin list. But there's another Eredin list as well. There are many types of Eredin list actually. There's one with the Frost Giants, many have Drowners in it, some have the Vatan Warriors. The one I prefer has the ships and the riders. So there are many approaches there then. The one I'm running actually is very strong against Dagon, so that's what I like. But it's actually struggles against Mr. King Bran over there. So it's a tricky matchup for sure. So that's that. But I guess it's worth it just to beat Dagon every single time. Not every single time, but almost all the time. And unsurprisingly, Dagon is still the go-to guy because, wow, he kind of has it all. He's just like, you don't have to, you're not really running a Veto deck. You're just like, partially because of the Woodland Spirit, you can just guarantee that you get out a Foglat, then you just play Woodland Spirit twice with the Resurrect, Renew. And that's basically all you're doing. Plus, you're just playing the good cards like Ciliano Harpy, other Harpies, Ekimari. It's not really like a really set up deck archetype. You're just like, hey, I'm just playing the good cards. And that is exactly what Dagon is doing. And we see that these most popular decks have a respectable keep. And that is something not to be underestimated. And maybe somewhat undervalued by the devs. That even placing like a Harpy on the board and is like soul crushing, because let's just say you are like losing, but if you have a Harpy on the board first round, then that means your opponent will be, well, in a way, won't be able to open pass against you to gain a card advantage. He will need to start fighting there, and that's massive. Basically, many times what you get is like, you play a 9-string bronze, which is the Ciliano Harpy that has other synergies as well. It's basically like a 13-string bronze if you consider the Harpies that get out, plus the carryover, plus the Ekimara. Let's just not talk about its power level. But my point is, having keep on the board, many times it just means like, it just gives you like, hey, you get this power, plus you actually draw a card. And that's why it's like extremely important. And then if you have a spy, you just say like, oh yeah, you had like 2 eggs. It's fine, I'm just gonna extract my card advantage with the spy. But then your opponent throws you a spy, and guess what? You're in a tough spot again. And you start playing and you still lose a card. Because you're going first. Of course, this going first, going second thing matters quite a bit. But we see that these top decks definitely value having some carryover for sure. But Dagon is actually a lot weaker, and I'm curious about King Bran numbers. Okay, fine. You're a big boy. You can beat up Morvran. Whatever. Henselt, Crach, Radovid. This is what we see that, like, Mr. Radovid, like, can't do a lot. But what he faces, yeah, he has the worst matchup against Francesca. We see that Francesca is actually the 5th. So that's good to see. And also somewhat struggles against Foltest. So if you want to be on the top 5, you need to really assume that you're going to go up against King Bran a lot. But this is not beating King Bran. Like 51%, it would need to be below 50% just to... but this is not good. King Bran, the king of all, apparently no counters whatsoever. So keep playing King Bran and you gotta be the best of the best. Also seem to struggle against spell scoia'tael that actually fallen down quite a bit. So a little bit struggles against scoia'tael. And of course, like, I wouldn't say like it's weak to Dagon. Maybe it's like, yeah, Dagon has higher than average view rate against it. Because it has the average view rate of 49.549. But and that's why Dagon is, I guess, a little bit better. But Dagon in general have worse view rates. Like, look at this. Like, completely gets wrecked by Henselt. Completely gets wrecked by dwarfs. What? Brouver Hoog? What? 43% against King Bran? Am I missing something here? Doesn't it have higher against Mr. King Bran? Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, that's actually correct. I'm a dummy. So he's not losing that heavily to King Bran, but like that's not winning. But the lows are definitely lower here. Apparently, everyone can really beat up Mr. Morvran there. And I don't know if I should even talk about Morvran. There's like so many problems with that guy. But I suppose Lacey has his own archetype that I don't even know. He's just bad. Anyhow, Foltest, I'm not so sure because like this is only a week worth of stats, and we might just see. I don't know about the sample size. I suppose the sample size is yeah, that's it, 300,000. But we don't know the individual sample sizes, so whatever. But I do believe Foltest is a pretty good one. Like we see like Henselt, Foltest, and Radovid. Radovid is the lowest one. Henselt and Foltest is somewhat close to each other, and Henselt can be used as a way to finish the game. But usually, almost always, the opponents force out Henselt before. So I suppose like Foltest probably makes the most sense. And I did see some Foltests like unsurprisingly doing pretty well, and they have about equal popularity, the No Realm leaders. But yeah, it's not too relevant. You probably won't be able to tell this difference just by playing, but we do see that Foltest is a little bit winning here, and I believe that's that's just putting a bunch of guys, like buffing them up and just getting them out. Like that's how you do it. Probably with the Vetter chicks as well, and the Foltest is pretty good at that. Just a sec. Sorry about that. Anyway, so Mr. Dagon is definitely the most popular guy in the ladder, and I suppose he's just the go-to for most players there. Like, hey, like if you don't know what to run, just go with Dagon. Like you cannot go wrong with Dagon. He was always the go-to guy, and I suppose the most common list is definitely with Akimaras, Harpies, Ciliano Harpies, and whatnot. And that just works. And it does seem to tear most people apart. But in my experience, Eredin actually has a good matchup against that. But I did actually check it out before, and that does not seem to be the case, at least for this Eredin list. So I don't know. There are many Eredin lists out there. Some are actually better against the lockers, others are a little bit greedier, and of course it kind of matters on how the Dagon players against that, because the Eredin lists tend to be more playing for the long game, and the Dagon lists tend to be ridiculously strong in the short game. But of course, King Bran has something to say about that, because you can just like king out an insane finisher, and Dagon actually struggles with that. But the traditional Eredin versus Dagon matchup is that Eredin plays for the long game, Dagon plays for the short game, because Eredin can really generate a lot of value. But of course, if the Dagon is packing a lot of better counters, Eredin could be in a tough spot. So that's that. And Francesca and Brouver Hoog, we don't see these a lot, but we do see that it's okay-ish. It's not great. You mostly run this because like you're bored with Dagon and King Bran, but mostly King Bran, because King Bran seems to be the one that everyone should be running right now. And I did experiment with Francesca myself. I tried out the Mulligan deck, I tried out the move deck, and it seemed to work fine, but I seem to do okay against the Dagons and the Eredins and the Northern Realm. But King Bran always seemed to be the guy who just like, hey, what's up? I'm the king, and that's exactly what was my experience. That you can just play the scoia'tael and do fine. But Mr. King Bran is the king, so that's that. Also, I'm kind of find Dagon annoying, that he just like stays in the meta all the time, and the carryover. Because if King Bran went away, I am pretty sure that Mr. Dagon would be the leader again. Like it would be easy to say like, hey, why not just make King Bran a little bit weaker? But then Dagon would be the leader. And if Dagon goes away, like I don't think it would stop like that, because it would be like, we do see like King Bran really dominating right now. And that could be partially because of the surprise factor of it. However, I wouldn't call it that surprising anymore. But it definitely just came back to the meta hard after the patch. Eredin, I'm really glad that he is back. He used to be the leader no one used, and apparently just a little bit of buff to Wild Hunt and maybe 1 point off Dagon help him come back, and I actually enjoy him. So it's nice to see him being maybe not, well, I don't know. It depends on where we call tier 1. If we call King Bran tier 0, then he's tier 1. If King Bran is tier 1, then everybody is like tier 2 here. So it doesn't really matter. Eredin is strong. I think it does well against Dagon. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that we can do better with the win rate. But like, this might be justified. In my experience, it has a good matchup against Dagon. Maybe not so much if the Dagon players play right. And that might be this, yeah, because if the Dagon player plays for like short round 1 with an easy win, and either forcing the Eredin player to go down 2 cards, or just give up early, giving control the game to the Dagon player, then the Dagon player can go like long round 2 and short round 3, and Eredin is gonna struggle against that particular match, in that particular match. But if the Dagon player misplays, or the Eredin player gets like average luck, Eredin can really win that matchup. Like, I would say it's Dagon's game to lose, most definitely. If the Dagon doesn't play that right, Eredin wins that for sure. But if the Dagon plays that right, I don't know. Maybe Dagon can win it. I don't know. In my experience, the Dagon misplayed every single time, and I won't be there again. So I don't know. In time, I guess Dagon's dominance will be more. I don't know. I guess this win rate is correct. I suppose in this list, more Eredins misplayed than Dagons. But if the Dagons don't misplay and the Eredins don't misplay, I suppose Dagon could be possibly the stronger option. But the Dagon needs to take a very specific line of play. And Eredin can still disrupt that. So, but it's really damn hard to really fight into round 1 when your opponent just like slams down a woodland spirit and like, hey, what's up? I got 30 something points, and you got like, I don't know, a Wild Hound with like 2 points and a frost on the board. What now? So, like, to even start playing there, it's tough. Henselt, problem is with Henselt that your Henselt is usually forced out. Henselt is extremely strong, and many times can force the opponent to give up the round. But like it's a bit of a one-trick pony, and especially if you just build your deck too much around it. Like I see many of the siege support plus machines plus poor flanking infantry decks. And you just like use up the siege supports early, and you just play some shit cards, and you lose like brutally because your opponent just like not like has like a little bit better units, but a lot better units, and you get like completely destroyed. Even if you just try to get back the siege supports, again, they might just like get sniped or whatnot. So it's gonna be tricky. The spies, the spy popularity definitely dropped a lot. We do see that Johnny Calvate and Emir is about the same. I personally feel that Johnny's a little bit better. Of course, the V rate is not something that is noticeable. I do think like Johnny's better for the spies. Emir's okay, especially with this one buff. I didn't say too much mail. Maybe I saw like 1 mail, so I'm pretty sure that not a relevant number of Emir players play mail. I believe in the previous patch, like I don't know, like it was like 1%, 2% at most. So I don't know. I don't know how the win rate would change based on that. Spy deck is okay, but it did lose. It does struggle a little bit with the value generation and the finishers. Unlike Dagon and King Bran, it doesn't have carryover, and the Dagon and King Bran tends to have also very strong win condition. Spies can have very strong win condition as well, but many times it includes like Rain Farm into Joachim or Infiltrator into Mano on some very strong target. And these decks not necessarily have that, maybe. You probably have something like a 10-ish. So that still makes it like okay, but it's a tricky one for sure. And again, no carryover kind of puts these decks in a questionable state. And also tend to be not too well prepared for any kind of better decks, so that actually puts it in a tough spot against Eredin as well. But let's just check it out. I don't know how relevant the stats are. It's good against Broccoli. I call Aitni Broccoli because she's like talks about broccoli a lot. I don't know why. We do see that, yeah, this spy deck tends to have a terrible matchup against Eredin and Dagon. So that's not what you want. But doesn't get whooped as much against King Bran. But that's not much of an achievement, you know. And I believe like Johnny doesn't really change much here. Basically the same thing. Yeah, it's like they just get whooped by the tier 1 decks. And Fortis does okay. Actually, Fortis is pretty very heavy as well these days. If that's the best, that's the deck I'm thinking of. So Fortis is basically Eredin number 2. Many times you see it with the better inclusion. So you gotta be somewhat well prepared. And again, it's just really hard to outpower them. Actually, the spy decks got a little bit hit with the better the clear sky change as well, because the spy decks actually worked well with the gold weather and white frost and whatnot, but it's a lot harder to include it now, because if you just play it and your opponent has an answer, it's a bad trade for you. Argument can be said that yeah, it should be like that, but it just makes running those kind of weathers a bit of a gamble in my opinion, because First Light is something you can include risk-free, and it's not like a single weather counter. Like, hey, if your opponent plays single weather, then you have it and it's great. And if weather is part of the meta, you know that they might have a strong counter to your weather, and you know that's fair enough. But First Light is not like that. People are just like, hey, I'm just running First Lights, whatever, and you just never know. And they just keep adding in cards that work anyway in their deck. It's not really something that they just put in because just to like shut down your weather, but it just works by itself as well. So it's a bit too risk-free to include. I kind of like it that it actually gives you an advantage if you shut it down, but like kind of make up your mind. Like either it should be risk-free to include and like break even when it works. That's how it was in the previous patch. Or it should be beneficial to use, but not risk-free to include. Because like this, like if you put in the gold weathers or like the silver weathers, or even like many single weathers, and get shut down by the First Light, then like, okay, great, now I lose the game just because you put in something that would otherwise give you a random bronze anyway, so that's really no loss whatsoever. But that is a topic that I talked about some other time as well. And Broccoli, interesting that the win rate went down. Of course, it does struggle a little bit against Keep, and I think this deck actually relies very much on the Farseers to try to swing the game. In a one round, 8 is pretty strong. You just go like Farseer, 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 Protectors, everyone who has buff, kill everybody. And of course, it was sometimes run with the gold letters. That's just way too risky to include, in my opinion, right now. So 8 is weaker, and also you kind of know her game plan, and it's pretty easy to play around. And again, the Protectors are not gonna be strong enough to match the finishing potential of other superior decks. Harald again completely gets shut down by weather counters, and even if he didn't, like, I don't know, like it's fine. Like if he doesn't get shut down by weather counters, it's fine. But again, he doesn't have the keep. He does have value generation with the X-Men plus whatnot, but it's a bit weird. Radovid, he could be good. I suppose he's not as good right now because the decks are not as greedy, but he's fine. Again, with Radovid, it's not really about the finishing potential. He himself is not really a finisher. He's just usually just something that you play earlier. And I guess that's fine. Radovid is I suppose in a fine spot. But not too relevant right now. Honestly, now there needs a rework. More Van Boris. Like, honestly, the other, like, should I even talk about this? Like, basically, he eats, like, 3 eggs. Like, you're probably better off with a Vran and just, like, relying on time, because he's a 5 that eats 3 eggs. With the Vran, you can just go, like, Harpy, Ciliano Harpy, Vran, and just do something else. Vran eats again. So at that point, it's, like, it's almost the same, but if you just, like, put down another Harpy, Ciliano Harpy, it's like Bran is the better Unseen Elder, because he actually starts with one extra power. So Unseen Elder, I suppose the only thing that I've seen Unseen Elder used for is some kind of a cheesy adrenaline rush play. So that is not something you wanna rely on, actually. But I just brought it up. You're not gonna see him a lot. And Morven Voris, well, revealed archetype has no keep. It fails to generate value. The Mangonos get completely zapped down. It's interesting to see that the popularity is higher. It can drop down some okay units with the spotters, but it's a bit awkward. Again, revealing cards is useless. You gotta put in the foot soldiers and the golems in your deck. and those things are also like they have a cost to them, but for some reason it's also counted in the power level of Morven's ability, because like come on, just Morven should be good even without the golems or the foot soldiers. It's basically like I don't know, like come on. They need to work on the reveal archetype. That's what I'm saying. But like this is not about that. That should be like its own video. I don't know. Maybe Morven can work together with that, but like Morven just drops down points, and the Mango knows, like I suppose in an ideal scenario, like you play the Mango knows, you reveal a lot, or maybe like with the new changes to the spotters, like many times you just see like them included with like Leo, and well, I wouldn't say many times, but the times you actually see them, you don't see like a full reveal archetype, but like just try to get away with the least amount of units possible, and just try to make the spotters like at a 15 by revealing a golem or Cantrell or some crap like that, because the reveal units are kind of garbage. And in order to benefit from the golems or then the foot soldiers, you need to reveal quite a bit, but is it really worth it? I guess you can go with some tempo start, but like how do you really win the game? Maybe he's not that weak, but he's definitely in a weird spot. And partially because like showing your own cards or revealing the opponent card is especially randomly, it's worthless. Anyway, looks like that's it, and I'm really glad to see this. And King Bran is leading us to Valhalla. And but other than that, it's it's somewhat even. We do see representation of Noram, monsters, scoia'tael, and Nilfgaard. Pretty close to each other. We see that the difference between the highest and the lowest one is like 3%ish. So that's pretty minor, and this is fairly well balanced. Only King Bran is really running away, but these 4 factions are doing okay right now. Anyway, that's it, guys. Tell me what you think, and see you next time.